going to change things up today with a dry fly. You're going to learn to tie the simple X Caddis. And we're going to tie an important dry fly, one that I probably use more than any other dry fly in my box, and that is the X Caddis. As you can see, I've got one here in the vise. This is what we're going to work on today. So I'm going to take you through it step by step. I'll go through all the materials that I use. Use the materials that you have. Don't feel like you have to use the exact materials. This is just a variation. There's lots of different variations of the X Caddis, but I'm going to give you the basic concepts so you know how to tie it, and then you make it your own. If you stick around to the end of the video, again, I'm going to give you directions, as I have in some of my other videos, how to get to the TroutStrike Fly Box Chart. This is the time of year where I start getting ready for hatch season. I start going through all my boxes, and I use this chart to kind of get everything organized. So if you stick around, I'll explain how you can get to that. My goal is with the fly box chart to get all of the flies on their video tutorials back to my YouTube channel. So we're going to take a crack at that with the X Caddis today. So I'm going to take this one out of the vise, and I'm going to take a dry fly hook, and it is going to be a size 16. I tie the X Caddis in a 12. I'll have some in a 14, 16, 18. Today with UTC 70, I'm using tan, and I'm going to get just a few thread wraps here, right at a little bit past the midway of the hook shank, and just tie that off. Now, one of the things you can do, you can leave this on if you want to rib the fly, if you're concerned about durability. I'm generally not that concerned with durability with dry flies, maybe because I don't catch enough trout to worry about durability, but I'm not going to rib it. You can certainly tie in a light wire. You can leave this in if you want to do the ribbing. I'm going to do one without ribbing today. The next thing I'm going to do is take some polypropylene yarn. This is a big hunk of it that I snipped off. This is the same material you would use for a post on a parachute, but that's just way too much. So I'm going to separate that. I'm going to cut that out. You're going to use my scissors. I'm going to cut that in half, and I'm going to use about half of that amount, just so you get a look there about how much I'm going to use. And that's going to become the trailing shuck of this fly. I'm going to wet the ends of this, and I'm going to tie this in with a pinch wrap, put in 2 turns, and then I'm going to just pull it back to hide all those fibers, because I want to keep a nice smooth body. Then I'm just going to use my thread, and now I'm going to put some tension on this trailing shuck material. Keep it nice and even, keep that tension on there, and I'm going to pull that back to about where the bend starts. Then I'm going to take my scissors. You can make your shuck as long as you want. You can leave it that long if you want. Some people like it to be right here, just as a little tag. I'm going to go about halfway here, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a trailing shuck behind this. And I'm going to get rid of these fibers. I don't want them sticking out later, because I want to keep this nice and smooth. That's one of the things about the X Caddis that I really like. It's a versatile fly in the sense of it sits flush to the water, so you can use it in a calm pool, but it's also got enough buoyancy. You can throw it into some riffles and whatnot. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a really light, thin dubbing noodle, and I'm using Nature's Spirit Snowshoe Rabbit in tan. Again, you use the materials you have. I'll link that in the description if you want that particular dubbing, but really any dry fly dubbing, you want something that is something that is designed for dry flies. I don't want anything that's overly buggy here. So I'm just going to take tiny little pinches like this at a time, and I'm going to just make a really thin dubbing noodle. That nice and tight. Push that right up to the hook. Keep a nice tight thread, and then I'm going to start wrapping here, keeping that body nice and even. There, I'm getting a little extra hump that I don't want, so I'm going to turn that. All right. That's looking good. That's looking good. Probably got a little rib that. I am going to choose to not rib that. One of the things I am going to do is I am going to trim this up because I want that dubbed body to sit flush against the water. So if there's any guard hairs or stray fibers in there, I want to try to trim that out now while I can. I'm not going to get too fussy about it, but just going to give it a nice little haircut there. On a little bit of a CDC underwing, so I've got two natural color CDC feathers here, and I'm just going to wet my fingers a little bit. I'm going to try to mesh them together the best that I can and try to get them to go together. Sometimes I struggle with this part, getting the feathers to line up and not be going every which way. So I just try to figure out the length that I want. About that long should be good. And I'm going to use just a pinch here. Give one good tight turn and another one. I'm going to lift all of the butt ends up. I'm going to put a couple of wraps underneath there. And I'm going to cut them in with my scissors. And I'm going to get a nice clean cut there. So I just want that underwing to sit underneath. That's just going to help give the fly some movement, give it a little bit of added buoyancy. Now for the next part, I'm going to use some deer hair. I'm going to take about as much as the gap of the hook, and a couple little things to keep in mind here. Here's a trick. So you want to take the butt ends, take another snip of that off, and then brush all of those under hairs out of there. Those hairs aren't going to do you any good to keep this fly buoyant. You want these stiff, hollow fibers in the deer hair. That's what's going to keep this fly buoyant. So before I just go throwing that on, I'm going to use my hair stacker tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just carefully guide those in and let that go down into the hair stacker. You give it a couple of thumps on the desk, and then when I pull that out, you'll see it aligns all those tips for me. So using my left hand, my left forefinger and thumb, I'm just going to pinch that out, get it out of there. Going to make sure all the guard hairs are out, and then transfer it over, and then I can just lay it right on the top of my fly. So I want that to go back a little past the bend of the hook. So I'm going to put it on there, and I'm going to do just a one wrap all the way around, nice and loose, and then I'm going to put some tension on that thread. Now it's really easy to break your thread here. You don't want to break your thread at this stage because you're almost done. But you want to put some tension on it, pull that thread straight up, and then it kind of flares that deer hair out. So I'm going to do 2 tight turns, and then I'm going to bring all of this back. This is when you start feeling a little bit like a hairdresser with these flies. I'm going to pull all of that back. I'm going to put a couple of turns underneath there, and then I'm going to do a sneak in a whip finish under here. 1, 2, and 3. All right. Secure that in. All right, so the next part is I'm going to pull all these fibers forward. I'll pull all these forward like that, just to kind of separate them. And then I'm going to pull them straight up and give this a haircut just on a little bit of an angle, just to leave a little bit of a head there. All right, now one of the things I want to do with this fly is I want to make sure that it's going to sit flat on the water. So I am going to use my rotary tool. And if I see like here, there's a little bit of that deer hair that comes down, I'm going to actually just trim that out of there because I want that to sit flush. I want, when this fly sits on the water, what I like about it is it gives a very low profile. It kind of sits almost in the film of the water. So the only thing I want the fish to see is that dubbed body. So if there's any fibers that are coming down below that dubbed body, there's a little piece of CDC I'm trimming out of there. I'm going to try to flatten that out. That way the bottom, the fish are really only seeing that, and then the trailing shuck. And then this rides above the water. It just kind of gives them that silhouette or that profile. So yeah, this is the X Caddis. One of the things I will also do just to reinforce that knot, I'll take a little bit of UV resin and I'll put that down here right at the head, just to secure those thread wraps in. I'm going to zap that real quick with the light. You can use super glue, head cement, whatever you want to use there. But that'll just reinforce that. But this is the easiest way to get it is just go to TroutStrike.com. Click on the resources tab, and it's the first thing that pops up. There'll be a link there. The chart will come up. You'll be able to download that chart. It'll make a copy for you. So I want to thank you. If you liked the video, if it was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, now's time to step away from your vise and get out on the water.